In today's video, I'm going to show you the dark side of Jehovah's Witnesses' mind control techniques. This is part 2 of the video entitled The Mind Control Strategies that the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses use to keep its members loyal. If you have not watched part 1, I'll leave a link at the end of this video. In addition to rules, they have an accountability system. So they set the rules, and on the other side, effectively, they set their accountability systems. This is very, very powerful. It's a very powerful system. Furthermore, intricate system of oversight exists within the organizations. Elders monitor behavior and can impose disciplinary actions for perceived disobedience, often resulting in public reprimands or disfellowshipping.
The organization had so many strict rules, and you found them so difficult to follow, just not being able to read other material or the way you dress, all that stuff. But there are 8 million Jehovah's Witnesses in the world, right, supposedly. Mm-hmm. So most of them, I guess, are fine with those strict rules.
When you really understand to the level that Jehovah's Witnesses are micromanaged in every aspect of their life, and how controlled they are. Even though they'll say that they're not and they have all their personal freedoms, you don't. Like, you are so controlled and so micromanaged. It literally is like, they talk so much about, the new system coming in paradise. Like, it's actually here, right? You're just trapped in purgatory right now. You're trapped in hell. Get out of there and you can actually have, some joy and happiness, right? And get that out of your life before it's too late. The saddest part is all these people are putting off having a happy life for some future paradise to come.
Jehovah's Witnesses have an intricate system of behavior control. Elders of the congregation actually monitor and control the behaviors of their members. If they notice disobedience to these rules and regulations, a member will face reprimand, and in a worst-case scenario, might even be disfellowshipped. The Watchtower emphasizes that faithful servants must be accountable for their actions, and this appeared in the Watchtower, June 1, 2015. Let's look at another aspect of mind control, and that is identity and belonging. They create unique group identity, very, very classical of cults. Jehovah's Witnesses cultivate a unique identity through language and cultural practices. Terms like worldly and the truth delineate insiders from outsiders. An ex-member, Andrew Anderson, notes, the language used creates a psychological barrier, reinforcing the notion that they are special and set apart. Anderson, witnessing for the faith. The next thing that they do is reinforcement of belonging. In addition to creating a unique group identity, the next thing they do is reinforcing belonging. Now, this sense of belonging is continuously reinforced through communal activities and recognition for loyalty. Members are often praised publicly, which fosters identity and ties members to the group and the organization. Now, this emotional bond is very, very strong, and it keeps members from going away or leaving the group, making it difficult for the individual to leave the group. In the first place, you are isolated. You are isolated from the rest of the world. You are considered as unique. You are considered as weird. So once you've been isolated, that same isolation is now used to control you, because now you are an isolated individual, you are apart from the world, and if you leave, where are you going to go? You are going to remain isolated, you are going to remain alone. And as this former member of Jehovah's Witnesses sect said, solitary confinement is one of the most feared behavior control techniques in the prison, that even hardcore criminals fear it. And the Jehovah's Witnesses have actually used this very, very, very effectively. Let's listen to this clip.
the most painful thing I think you can do to another human being is to isolate them and cut them off. That's why solitary confinement, is such an issue in the prisons and stuff, and why it's such an effective tool also in those environments, because that people will do almost anything to just not be alone. And when you're raised as Jehovah's Witness your whole life, when all of your family around you, all your friends are in that environment, when they cut you off and disfellowship you, you are put into solitary confinement.
So once you are isolated, if you leave, where are you going to go? All your friends are Jehovah's Witnesses. And in most cases, even all the relatives are Jehovah's Witnesses. If you've liked this video, like it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share. Another strategy that Jehovah's Witnesses has used within the 4 categories of behavioral control, information control, emotional control, and thought control is what is called cognitive dissonance and rationalization. Members are often face cognitive dissonance when confronted with the contradictions in their behavior or doctrine. Jehovah's Witnesses encourages rationalization for any discomfort that arises. According to Dr. Margaret Singer, a noted psychologist, cult members develop elaborate rationalization to resolve conflicts between their beliefs and the real-life experiences. This is from Singer, Cults in Our Midst. Let's look at the definition of cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is the psychological discomforts we feel when we hold 2 conflicting beliefs, values, or attitudes, or when our actions contradict our beliefs. So members often feel cognitive dissonance when confronted with contradictions in doctrine or behavior. W encourages rationalization for any discomfort that arises. According to Dr. Margaret Singer, a noted psychologist, cult members develop elaborate rationalization to resolve conflicts between their beliefs and real-life experiences. Singer, Cult in Our Midst. The next strategy that Jehovah's Witnesses use is exit barriers. Jehovah's Witnesses also use exit barriers to control their members. Now, the first one is psychological barriers to living. Now, leaving the Jehovah's Witnesses is psychologically daunting. The fear of losing familiar ties is a significant barrier. As noted by former member Lisa Montgomery, the thought of being shunned by family and friends is terrifying, which keeps many from leaving Montgomery, leaving the witness. Let's look at practical barriers. Practical barriers also exist, such as lack of resources and support network. This isolation compounds the difficulty of exiting the group, further entrenching individuals in the JW lifestyle. In other words, Jehovah's Witnesses are afraid of leaving because if they leave, they will lack the resources. You may be dependent on your friends, you may be dependent on your family members, or maybe you are employed by a JW community, and now if you leave and they shun you, you will lack the resources necessary for your survival. Some people are actually thrown right in the court by their own parents, not knowing what to do or where to go. And unfortunately, if this happens in the Western world, you are in trouble. At least in Africa, we have many networks of relatives, uncles, nephews, nieces, where you can go and stay, and they'll be able to understand. But in the West, you are in a lot of trouble if you are shunned and you don't have where to go and have no resources. Let's listen to this clip.
So when you got this girl pregnant, your parents find out, right? Well, how does that conversation go?
Just my mom was home, and when I got there, she basically informed me that I needed to go to what they call a judicial meeting. So I went, and it went exactly how I expected it to. My dad wasn't home at the time. So it might have taken less than an hour, and they made that decision for the good of the congregation that they were going to disfellowship me. And they announced it right away, that I was disfellowshipped from the congregation, and people should avoid, in front of the whole congregation, that people should avoid contact with me. And And they gave the reason why, and everybody, like I said, turned around and looked. And
How did you feel in that moment?
pretty small at that moment. Like, I knew these people my whole life. And within that second, they were never going to speak to me again. And they never did. None of them. The boys in the congregation that were close to my age that I had grown up with, I mean, that was the last time that I talked to them. That was it. Next day at school, or it was nothing. Like, it was like I didn't even exist anymore. And things changed at home too, obviously. I mean, my parents, minimal communication. No more good morning, no more nothing. I mean, it was just minimal.
Because from what I can understand is that you got disfellowshipped in January, and then they said you had until you graduated
Graduated school, yeah.
So
that conversation took place right away. So within a day or two, my dad returned home from work. We sat down. I expected to be booted out right there. My dad said he would allow me to stay as long as I attended the meetings. I could no longer go out and field service because you're not allowed to, obviously, but I had to attend the meetings. If I didn't, that was it. I was out. So I was allowed to stay there until I finished high school. So, and literally the day I finished high school, that was...
Can you talk about that?
That was it. Yeah, it was a pretty shitty day for me. Pretty shitty day, man. I can remember my stuff being outside, and my mom, I still can see her standing in the front window and just pointing at the road. A couple bags sitting outside, and that was it. I had no money. I had nothing. Nothing. I had my little Honda Civic car. I had maybe a quarter tank of gas in it. And that was it. I got into my car, and when we were kids, we used to hang out under a bridge, and I went there. And under the bridge, we had like not a cabin, but a little setup there, right? So I spent the night there. Actually, I had slept there for a couple days, and those couple days, I was very close to ending it.
So this practical barrier makes it very difficult for JW members to actually leave the sect. So the techniques employed by Jehovah's Witnesses to maintain member loyalty are multifaceted and deeply ingrained. From isolation and information control to emotional manipulation and strict behavioral expectations, these methods create a powerful system of control. As we have become aware of these tactics, it is crucial to support those affected by high control groups and advocate for greater understanding and resources for individuals seeking to leave. So in other words, if as you witness to Jehovah's Witnesses, don't take this system as being very light. It is not very easy for a member of the Jehovah's Witnesses to actually leave the sect. There are so many hurdles they have to jump over. And before these people leave, you have to make sure that you don't underestimate the kind of web that they've been entangled in. And therefore, such members will require a lot of support for them to leave the sect. This is not an easy thing. And people who leave, they leave it at their own peril. Now, it's very important that members of the Jehovah's Witnesses begin to recognize these tactics, these covert methods of mind control, that they don't even realize that they've actually been manipulated. They've been hypnotized, not to even think of anything else or to consider anything else outside the confinement of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Recognizing these patterns would empower individuals and families to make informed decisions about their beliefs and relationships. If you've liked this video, like it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share. What I've discussed with you are just snippets of Jehovah's Witnesses' beliefs, doctrine, and practices. For you to understand what Jehovah's Witnesses fear most, click on this link here. This is the link to part 1 of the video that I talked about on the mind control techniques that the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses uses to keep their members loyal.